Marcos could change her shoes every day for 8 years without wearing the same pair twice.
My mother? Get beyond the shoes. The shoes are a funny side story.
I've been very misunderstood, and but then I have a different perception in life. I look at it from totality, not from a specific point of view, because eventually, as has been my experience, eventually we'll go on a circle. It is from the circle that you can make a judgment, whether it's good or bad, what you have done. This is a book that I have been a little presumptuous to write. The book is called The Circles of Life. All the things that you see around you, they become the elements of your infrastructure. But they can only be good as they are beautiful, and beauty is in the landscape of your heart. Do not leave it there. Paint it, shape it, build it, let it flow from within you in everything you do or touch. It is easy to be beautiful because it is natural. My mother, she died in 1938. She was 36 years old. When my mother died when I was 8, I was brought here with the whole family by my father. I remember as a child, I would make castles in the sand. And anything that I dreamt of, if I wanted to see my Prince Charming, somehow it would formulate with the clouds. Up there was where my dreams and my vision would be, and my ambition. And then down here was when I would make this real in the sand I formulated with my hands. Somehow I was a girl who was very much on daydreaming.
I looked up and she was there, and I thought she was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. She reminded me of the Virgin Mary. Long hair, beautiful face. That's how I remember it, having met her.
This is the Philippines, December 26, 1941. Jap bombers are coming.
Let's go back 400 years to 1521. Spaniards ran the Philippines for 3 centuries.
4 decades after the Philippines were annexed by the United States following the Spanish-American War.
For the past 40 years, Filipinos shared Uncle Sam with Americans.
This was Manila's punishment for being an American city. We lost the Philippines.
And in the place of the Americans who had governed with justice came the Japanese, who governed by the sword and offered nothing but slavery.
We were first year high school. We would go to school barefooted because there was mud on the street. We would just clean our feet there when we reached school. And then Imelda's dresses were made of parachutes, bed sheets during the war. She did not complain. She liked it. At least she had a new dress.
Every time there is a celebration of the school and there is a float, Imelda always would be up there as Philippines with long hair.
Yes.
Red, white, and blue Filipino dress. And the Americans will always applaud. That's the most beautiful Miss Philippines we saw.
Now, nearly 3 years later, the Americans returned.
Within 9 months of the first landing on Leyte, U.S. forces had completed the liberation of the island. This was the vindication of their faith in the United States and in their hero, General Douglas MacArthur.
It was General Douglas MacArthur who discovered I could sing. He always proclaimed himself that he was my talent scout. Then one day, Irving Berlin came to town, so he had me called. He said to me, Imelda, you sing. This is Irving Berlin. Little did I know who he was. So I sang, God bless the Philippines, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. And then he said, Imelda, that's not God bless the Philippines. Oh, no, I said, that's God bless the Philippines because my teachers taught me that. Oh, no, that's not God bless the Philippines. That's God bless America because I composed it, he said. Then I said, well, Mr. Berlin, what's the difference between America and the Philippines? Oh, there's a big difference. But we also pledge our allegiance to the American flag. I said, what's the difference between American and Philippines? Well, there's a difference. Because at that point, really, this was 44, and it was not until 46 that we had our Philippine independence from the United States. We were really a Commonwealth. So we were pledging allegiance to the American flag. So Irving Berlin went to one side of the house and he started writing something. In about 20 minutes he finished, he came here and said to me, Imelda, you learn this song. If you get to learn this song tomorrow, he said, I will make you sing this here, right here. The liberation forces of 40,000 will be there and we will premiere this song. Heaven watch the Philippines, keep her safe from harm, guide her sons and her precious ones in the city and on the farms, friendly with America, let her always be. Heaven watch the Philippines and keep her forever free, and keep her forever free.
I asked the father, can I bring Imelda to Manila? And of course, my uncle said, sure, go ahead, take her out. Why? Because Imelda was being courted by many men. So I took her to Manila.
She was going to Manila, and she was going to be in the care of a rich relative.
It was just a bigger world, a bit frightening. I was some kind of a freak because you were just new in town. You were a novelty, and you were pretty naive. It was a great attraction for the city boys, and we're in not only having dozens for people flirting or courting you, but hundreds.
We put up a Miss Philippines contest, and of course we looked around for beauties from all provinces. She represented Manila, and in the final day, Miss Romualdez then, she was not yet Mrs. Marcos, ran as second runner. She was not contented with the decision of the judges. She went to approach Mayor Lacson to question the result. And so I think to appease Miss Romualdez, Mayor Lacson appointed her, or whatever is the right word, to be the muse of Manila.
They wanted to make a movie star of her, but in the meantime, she met Marcos, so everything was changed.
My cousin asked me to join her to go to Congress, that was the first time I had a glimpse of Ferdinand Marcos.
While they were at the canteen, the recess bell for the congressman sounded, and everybody rushed to the canteen, of course. And there was Imelda in a corner, and Marcos saw that. So that was the beginning of the end.
One of the things that really attracted me to him was his super mind. The many guys that had courted me, I have never seen anybody who was more in love with me than this guy. And he could not take his eyes off me, and he could not eat, he could not drink, and he could not sleep.
Marcos rarely did anything without political calculation. He knew that it would enhance his public image to have this stunningly beautiful woman beside him. And quite apart from that, Imelda belonged to the Romualdez clan, a very powerful political family.
She married somebody she had met 11 days before. They called it a whirlwind courtship.
More than love and anything, aside from the fact, of course, that my cousin was the Speaker of the House, he said, you know, this guy is a future president. This guy is brilliant. This guy is everything. He is single, and he is a real bachelor. He's brilliant. He's got all the potential. He's legendary. He's this, is this. Whoever will not marry this guy is stupid.
This was Ferdinand and my quarters. It could be set up, you know, exclusively, just in privacy. Somehow, I had my own bedroom, and he had his own bedroom. Like, for instance, this one is his bedroom, but we were always together. We always slept together, but we would sometimes be there or here, but we were always together. And this was somehow the looks of my bedroom also. Again, it was always a bed for two. Somehow President Marcos and myself wanted to see each other the next morning, like we were going on a date again.
She was very shy to start with, and she would lock herself up in her room. I don't think she liked the idea that he had other women. She knew she was beautiful. I mean, she couldn't understand the fact that her husband was a roving eye.
Pilyo talaga, pilyo, pero sa lahat ng never had a mistress. You know what I mean by mistress? Yung kept, yung ganyan, ganito, hindi. Never. Hindi siya ganun eh. Madaming good time, pero hindi mistress. Kuminsan alam niya, kuminsan siguro, nagagalit din siya. She was a wife also, no? Nagagalit din siya, pero I don't know, hindi ko na alam yung behind the doors.
I knew very well that her food was weighed this much, darling. Her clothes were this size, darling. If you could not fit in there, sorry for you. That's how much he controlled her. I know she suffered a lot.
Coming from a family that was almost cloistered and very private, and suddenly it was so public. And I really could not take it. I was really suffering for major problems, like almost a breakdown, a nervous breakdown. The doctor went to him, he said, Mr. Senator, if you want your wife to be alive, you have to get out of politics. Immediately, Ferdinand said, if that is what will make her well, right now, I'm quitting politics. I said, if this man would give up his ultimate ambition to become president of the Republic of the Philippines, why can't I give up something? It was a real turning point. It's a matter of change of attitude. I said, how lucky I am that people come to my home. How lucky I am that I am the one giving a help rather than I asking for help. How lucky I am that people want to converge in my home. In the end, I was like fish thrown to water.
Imelda Marcos was moving along with the presidential candidate, Mr. Marcos, in a grueling campaign throughout the Philippines. During those nerve-trying days, Imelda Marcos displayed matchless courage and complete equanimity, captivating the people everywhere with her engaging charm. And if a few more thousand votes meant having to oblige with a song, she did with utmost grace.
A great deal of Marcos's victory owed to Imelda's appearances in the stage where she would sing. She was a vote getter. So from the start, they were really a partnership in that sense.
Before, yung wives ng mga presidente, they were just housewives. They never meddled in the campaigning. They never bothered. But then when Mrs. Marcos came, she started campaigning for the president.
Until that time, poor Filipinos had felt very neglected by their politicians, but Imelda managed to get out into the smallest provinces and the corners of them and really meet people, and she made them feel very important. There were a lot of issues for the country, and there were serious problems of poverty, but it came down, as it does in many countries, to a question of images. And the Marcoses had carefully cultivated an image of themselves as young, fresh talent that was going to help the country advance.
Filipino masses were convinced that it was a love team. It was part of their political persona, together helping each other, help the country. It was very effective, like a soap opera.
I do hereby proclaim as the duly elected President of the Republic of the Philippines, Ferdinand E. Marcos.
When we went to the palace, Bongbong was 6 years old, Aimee was 8 years old, and Irene was 4 years old.
It was strange because we suddenly were moved into this huge, huge house. And that's all I remember is that it was an enormous place. Actually, the first night we were terrified because it looked haunted. Of course, we didn't sleep a wink. We were waiting for the ghosts to appear. You can't really comprehend too much, except that suddenly you have all kinds of security guards and people, everybody's so nice to you suddenly.
On a rainy day in Washington, pomp and ceremony attend the formal reception of Philippine President Ferdinand E. Marcos and his wife.
When Marcos took over in 1966, he looked pretty damn good to Lyndon Johnson. He was one of the Democrats of Asia when there were very few at that time.
The Americans had always been involved in Philippine politics. Remember, we were a colony for about 45 years. Before we gained independence in 1946, we had to sign a military basing agreement with them, which would allow them to station the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Navy ships in the Philippines in two very large bases, the largest bases outside the continental U.S., larger than Pearl Harbor. He knew how to play the basis card very, very well. He knew what the Americans wanted, and he tested how far he could push the envelope on his relationship with them, which he did. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, did he get a lot of money from the Americans in return.
The opening of the new Metropolitan Opera House at New York's Lincoln Center is attended by President and Mrs. Marcos as the guests of Mrs. Johnson.
The most glamorous opera occasion since the Old Met opened in 1883.
The American media went to town portraying them as the John F. Kennedy and the Jacqueline Kennedy of the Philippines, who were going to build some kind of Philippine Camelot. The myth really was kind of powerful, and it struck people that way.
When Marcos became president, and I asked him, Ferdinand, now that you are president, I said to him, what is my role as First Lady? And he said, as president, I'll be the father of the country. I'll establish a strong house for the Filipino people. I'll build a strong house for the Filipino people, and you make it a home. So I reflected, what makes a home? Love. What is love when made real? Beauty. Culture. There was a crisis of identity. Who were we? Were we Japanese? Were we Americans? Were we Spanish? So I said, I'll build the cultural center of the Philippines to be the sanctuary of the Filipino soul and the monument of the Filipino spirit.
Well, I was one of those who rallied against the building of the cultural center, basically because the cultural center is just one big building that tried to compete with the Lincoln Center and other first world edifices of centers of culture. The Philippines certainly is not first world and couldn't afford such a building. And most of the things were irrelevant to suffering in the slum areas.
Apparently, the greater majority were thinking of a very mediocre foundation on just thinking on the palliatives, on the superficial thing of fixing up housing, all this, which we did attended to it later on. The curtain rises at the Cultural Center on September the 10th, 1969.
It filled a real need, and it was wildly successful. It revived Philippine art, all the performing arts.
The 1969 elections, where my father challenged him for the presidency, Marcos at that time allegedly spent about $250 million to win the elections. He outspent us something like 100 to 1, 200 to 1. It is hard to judge exactly how popular he was because he completely dominated the scene through money.
1969 was one of the dirtiest and most fraudulent elections we've ever had until then.
Ferdinand E. Marcos, ng Batak, Lalawigan ng Ilocos Norte. Inihalal at itinanghal ng Pangulo ng Pilipinas.
I think riots are here to stay. The ills of this country are great. They stem from the economic situation, from the mismanagement of government, but from the alienation of youth. Now that is the root cause.
So I come to speak of a society that is sick. We must act, we must change, and we must do so now.
Over that period, from 1970 to 1972, the image of Marcos plunged. Constitutionally, he could only hold 2 terms. But even if he could run in 1973, there was really no way he could win.
As of the 21st of this month, I signed Proclamation number 1081, placing the entire Philippines under martial law.
He informed the family very formally, and he called the little children. He said, the time has come. What we have to offer for the survival of our country is not only life, but more than that, honor. Because people will suspect or might say, oh, he just proclaimed martial law to extend his stay and extend his stay in power. No, it was the risk of his honor and his reputation, because he was so democratically committed.
Marcos abolished both houses of Congress and placed the courts under his control, closed down all radio and television stations and all newspapers.
When Marcos declared martial law, it was the greatest time that I can remember in this country. Everybody had discipline, everybody followed what they were told to do.
Marcos wants to stay in power as long as he can. And they did succeed. They were there for 18 years.
The normal flow of life continues. Everyday problems confront them as before, but they are no longer scared nor stifled in their movement. Fear is no longer a dark cloud over their heads, and life goes on.
Marcos had the fetish for the number 7 and multiples of 7. Martial law actually was declared in September 23. He changed it to September 21 because he was scared of any number that wasn't a multiple of 7.
It was a beautiful afternoon in December. It was December 7.
The date was auspicious enough. It was the 7th day of December, in the 7th year of President Marcos's administration, and the 77th day after the proclamation of martial law.
We are gathered here this afternoon to celebrate beauty and cleanliness. When we bring the sparkle of cleanliness to our community,
We were giving awards, and suddenly there was a man with a dark suit and had a bolo right inside his sleeve. That fraction of a second, oh God, I said, if there's somebody who's going to kill me, why do they have to, Lord, why is it to be a a bolo that is so ugly. It should have been such I wish they put some kind of a yellow ribbon or some kind of a nice thing with this kind of an ugly instrument. Why such an ugly instrument to kill me? I said. Anyway, I was still joking at that point. In fact, when this man was hitting me with this bolo, I looked around. I said, I wonder whom he is about to kill. Little did I know that was going to me. He came in closer and closer until, it's me. I did not feel any pain yet, and that I had all these 11 cuts. Eventually, this one here, and all of this was cut off, dangling. I was going to have plastic surgery so that the scars would not show. And Marcos said, no, don't touch it, don't have this plastic surgery because it is your badge of courage, he said. There was absolutely no reason why I could have escaped that assassin. And I said to myself, maybe the Lord saved my life because I was pretty generous in the giving, in the serving, in the caring for my fellow men. And so from then on, I said to myself, since the Lord had given me a second chance, I'm not only going to be excessively giving and serving and caring and extravagantly doing things for others, but I'm going to be selfless. I'll give it all. From then on, it was my most productive years.
The government has boldly dramatized commitment to its citizenry with the creation of the Ministry of Human Settlement under the leadership of Mrs. Imelda Marcos.
There was a lot you could justify as being Minister of Human Settlement, for example, in construction of roads, housing, environment, social welfare, etc. No? So she expanded the influence of her ministry.
Water, power, food, shelter, clothing, medical service, education, ecological balance, sports, recreation, livelihood programs, roads, bridges, communication, and the like. I built the Philippine Design Center, then the Folk Art Theater. Then we had the Philippine Convention Center. I am sensitive enough to put my ears, my total being, to the feelings of people. The people dictate, and I am able to hear loudly the dictates of the people. Knock down the whole thing there behind, and then knock down all the houses there in the guest house. It was already finished. The architect's still in the hospital. And then we have another $100 million to play around with.
Cultural center, the heart center, the kidney center, the lung center. The opposition said she had an edifice complex.
These were not things for the everyday person. They didn't go. The people who she felt really loved her and said really loved her were not the people who attended symphonies and ballets or got special care at heart centers.
One of the things that she did, which was quite impressive, She went against the Catholic Church and instituted a very strong population control program, distributing condoms and reproductive education, and she actually managed to lower the birth rate considerably.
Her husband made her the powerful governor of metropolitan Manila. It is widely rumored that if anything happened to her husband, she would succeed as the Philippines' dictator.
And so sometimes when they say, well, now don't you have a conflict now that you are governor and he is president? I said, no. Even if Marcos will make me mayor or governor from earth to heaven, I will not be powerful. You cannot decree power. We are losing our identity.
For her, it was about personal power, not about leadership. Even her good works projects, like cleaning up Metro Manila, were just cosmetics. To Imelda Marcos, everything is personal. Everything.
Tiga kemudian.
Ha? Tiga Manila, nagbakasyonera na limang. Sige na, dito, camera galing. Hindi.
She asked me if I could whip up something for her, and I did, and it was okay. And from then on, she started ordering loads and loads of things from me. My atelier, which was a two-story affair, they were literally filled with the frames of embroidery that these women were working on, because it takes forever to do this hand embroidery.
It is not expensive to be beautiful. It takes only a little effort to be presentable and beautiful. But it takes some effort, and E for effort. And unfortunately, people think of beauty as luxury, beauty as frivolity. No, or extravagance. Beauty is a discipline. Beauty is art, is harmony in the ideological sense. And in the theological sense, beauty is God and love made real.
She would give me such short notice. They would work with me for 24 hours, practically. I can say that so many women got blind, doing the embroidery for the things that I did for her.
And the ultimate reach in this world is beauty.
I was very nationalistic, and I was thinking, I'm not doing this just for her. I'm doing this for the whole country. So she is well appreciated abroad.
I remember when I was a little girl, and I was always asked to meet with VIPs in the province. And for days on end, we were ironing our dresses and shining our shoes. And then suddenly, the VIP comes in, and she wears a faded dress, and then she wears a shoes that might have seen better days, you know. Later on, when I became First Lady, I would be meeting with kings or queens. It would take me an hour to dress up. But when I go to the provinces, it would take me an hour and a half or two. Double the time, because they need a standard, they need a role model, they need a star, especially in the dark of the night. So when they would ask me, Mrs. Marcos, as First Lady, what was your role? I said, I had to be both star and slave. I had to be a star for these poor people, and at the same time, I have to be slave. I had to enslave myself that everybody becomes a star. Bigyan mo ang pictures. Bigyan mo ang picture. Malalaki. Bigyan mo. Buksan mo yan. I-distribute na lang. Alisin mo yung rubber band. I-distribute mo na lang, anak. Ipa-distribute ninyo. Wag na. Tama na.
Imelda had this thing about looking beautiful because she said that she was representing the people. It sounded to me so convoluted because she was representing a people who were so unglamorous, so unfree.
You just have to weigh this glamour with the human rights abuses, with the corruption.
Here now are the front page headlines. Mrs. Marcos left this morning.
The media was painting entirely different pictures to show their pomp and circumstance. And everything was happening underneath. People were suffering. There was tremendous poverty. There was tremendous violence all over the place. But just some kind of invisible reality. It took 14 years for that reality to catch up in 1986.
The Marcoses created a condition for peaceful people suddenly to seek other options.
Because they felt that there was no more avenue for peaceful change.
Aguinaldo, Bicutan, Crame, Bonifacio. Those are the camps, the military camps where political prisoners were detained.
We never had such a violation of human rights. In fact, we have no human rights case here in the Philippines, even to this day.
Oh, she cannot face reality. She cannot face reality. For heaven's sake, I was saying Mass in Bicutan for 5 years because it was all filled with political prisoners, completely.
You're looking at something like 70,000 political detainees, total. At any one time, they had as many as 19,000 in various stockades and military detention camps all over the country.
There was at the time an anti-subversion law. So anyone who was against Marcos or at any time in the past criticized the government in writing or in public speaking was considered a subversive. I was a punching bag for several hours. At some point, they made me lie down between two beds. They call this hanging in air torture. They usually would kick me in the stomach and then order me to do this, to go back up, no? And the whole day there was more of the same, more of the torture. No?
I stayed for a year in prison. Nobody knew where we were for about 8 days or more. Absolutely nobody. You just stayed in prison for as long as they wanted you to stay inside. Yeah, no charge, no trial, no nothing.
A most dramatic aspect of the new society is the respected place that the Philippines has gained in the Assembly of Nations. In the past, Philippine foreign policy served merely as a reflection of the country's special relations with the United States.
Let me give you a few names. Saddam Hussein, Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, Richard Nixon, Andre Gromyko, Fidel Castro, Doris Duke. What have you read in the press and seen on television about them? Have they not all been pictured at one time or another as ugly creatures to be avoided as monsters? How did they become our friends? Because we offered nothing more than the true, the good, and the beautiful. We offered peace.
Mrs. Marcos left this morning, accompanied by an official party that included tourism secretary.
She wanted to project that image of the Filipino. We all know that maybe 50 or 40 years ago, some people in Europe still thought we lived on trees. I guess she wanted to change that very image.
In the Philippines, it is said that the birth of humanity came about when a divine intent split a single bamboo and from...
She contributed in her own way. She negatively or positively placed the Philippines in the map because it was being discovered that there is this first lady who would go around and do some diplomatic work. Ex officio ambassador.
My mother somehow always could find a connection. She's very good at that. She's so instinctive. She has a very deft touch with people. It doesn't surprise anyone who's seen her in action that she was the one sent out by my father for the more delicate trips.
For me, the most interesting trips were the ones to Libya, where we went to beard the lion in his den, who was Gaddafi.
Her purpose was basically to convince Gaddafi to stop shipping arms to the Muslim separatists in the Philippines.
It was Gaddafi who came to see me. And when he saw me, he said, "Mrs. Marcos, I like you." I said, "Why, Mr. President?" "Well, I like you. You're a courageous woman." And then he said, "Why don't you become Muslim?" I said, "Mr. President, it will be very difficult to teach old dogs new tricks. I've been a Catholic all my life. I don't even know how to read the Quran." He said, "I'll teach you." And he would underline, Islam is peace. Islam is generous. Islam is kind. Islam is compassionate. And when the time came for the negotiations were being done and the formal agreement was being made, there was argument about the ceasefire. So I said, "Mr. President, but Islam is peace. And so I am coming here for peace. And Islam is peace. And I just read it as you taught me in the Quran, peace." Okay. I said, so agreed. So that was my main mission. Women's very often is not taken seriously. But Marcos was smart enough to know that if I made a mistake, he could always change his mind and he can be more flexible. So at first impact, the big hardy leaders, "Oh, this is easy negotiation." And they kept their defenses down. It was really better in the end because we could talk more or less human beings, like instead of thinking in a rational, logical way, and that got things all complicated and muddled up. And in the end, we were talking like humans.
She did have a level of access in Washington that was, to put it mildly, unusual. This was largely because she was viewed, rightly, as a figure of some influence and power in the Philippines. She was accountable to no one, including really not accountable to her husband.
She was very aggressive and pushing for a high-level set of meetings. And remember, she also had positions in her own right. She was the Minister of Human Settlements and Governor of Metro Manila. She controlled something like 15% of the budget.
Imelda Marcos is now one of the 10 richest women in the world, and she is one of a handful who has real power. In public, she denies ever wanting power, but the more she uses it, the more powerful she gets.
She had these bizarre all-night singing and dancing parties at Malacanang and on their yacht and in New York.
We can't give you anything but love. Imelda, that's the...
She made people sit around watching these endless films of herself and the Pope.
She considered herself a representative of the poor because the poor Filipinos experienced life through her. When she lived well, they felt good. She told me that on several occasions, told my wife that as well.
Well, my mother, that's the way she is. She's flamboyant. There are people who sit in the corner, or people who are the life of the party. My mother's the life of the party. She can't help that. And why should she?
We won't give you anything but love.
Every time I would go get things like paintings, I would think of paintings for a museum. Like, for instance, in this book, we have all the Italian masters from the Sienis to the Renaissance, the great masters from Filippino Lippi to Botticelli to Titian to Magnasco to Raphael to Canalettos. These are Canalettos. Big murals of Canaletto. This is Tiepolo, and this is Tiepolo. And all the major painters of this period, over 148, 50, lots of them. This Botticelli alone cost $25 million. They called me imeldific, and meaning excessive, extravagant, wasteful. And when they asked me, are you imeldific? Are you all this? I said, in a material world, when you're committed to God, beauty, and love, you can be mistaken as imeldific, meaning wasteful. Like if you put incense, flowers, candles, because you're a believer, to the altar of your God. For the non-believer, that's a waste and a frivolity. Just like when you see a beautiful woman, you cannot say, hi, look, she is 32% beautiful. You cannot quantify beauty. You cannot quantify love. I seem to be able only to see the positive things in life and the beautiful things in life. And when I see, for instance, garbage or ugliness, so then I turn my back, or I seem to be able to skip it. This was the Romualdez home. And this is where I practically grew up.
The house is actually much, much different than where Imelda grew up. It sort of has this dual purpose. It's a shrine to both Imelda and Jesus at the same time. One of its main features is 18 dioramas describing Imelda's version of her own life, with each diorama showing a chapter.
Welcome to Santa Niña Shrine. The center is the chapel area beside our guest rooms with different motifs. The center is our patron saint here in Tacloban. That is Santo Niño, and that is made of ivory from Italy. So all salad sets here are King Louis style from Europe. And this is Imelda's room. The walling here is hand-painted, hand-embroidered. The walling here is made of leather, Italian leather.
I know it's sticking out like a sore thumb in that area with little houses beside it. But I wanted to show them, look, who was Imelda? I come from a third world country, third-class province, and I was orphaned. And look, Imelda made it. If Imelda made it, everybody can make it. Look, at this age and stage, I feel so good, I'm still ready to fly.
She decided that Manila would host the Manila International Film Festival to rival Cannes and Venice and Toronto, that kind of thing. And they built a film palace in Manila, the Manila Film Center.
And because they were rushing it, you know, they had shifts of people working on a 24-hour basis.
They were pouring cement after pouring second layers and third layers without waiting for the first layer to settle and harden. So it so happened that the scaffolding collapsed, and about, I don't know, between 18 to 36 bodies were buried there, but she said, well, they're there, they're encased in concrete, finish it.
The attack on Mrs. Marcos was that I, in my hurry to build things very fast, I just left the dead there, which was a big lie. Immediately get every piece of debris and found 4. And we did not stop until we got each and every one of them, and each and every one's family was compensated.
To this day, they say that those souls haunt the building because you have all these strange sounds.
Nobody wishes to even occupy the film center because of the spirits that haunt the place. So you do have some buried bodies over there.
Towards a human order. When we talk about development, we talk about the development of the whole man, in body, in mind, and in spirit. Feed the body with what is good, like in the old Trinity, to make it healthy. Feed the mind with truth to make it literate. Feed the spirit with beauty so that it will have dignity. Only when the body is healthy, literate, and with dignity can it be whole and roll and can even smile. But take out one of this. You put eyes too and mouth. It looks like a Pac-Man.
Well, it's very esoteric, existential philosophy, really. When you simplify these things, they sound like weird. But if you try to draw pictures of any philosophical system, it will sound insane.
And a face that is happy always looks like a heart. A sad face is an upside-down heart. But put this together, it's the symbol for peace. That's the symbol for peace, an upside-down heart and an upright heart.
When she has an idea, it is people around her that begin to make it sound the best idea in the world. Of course, it was not the best idea most of the time, but then because they want to be looking so good to Mrs. Marcos, so they tell her, oh, that's a great idea.
I wish they were just, more truthful and be a real friend to her than just praising her to, all the time. It brought her down in so many ways.
7 portals to peace and order. Number 1, when you ask a child in its purity to draw a tree, it draws 0 and 1 is equals to ecological border. 1 woman and 1 man, you have a human order. Number 3, if you have 1 tree, the cosmos and man is equal to cosmic order. Number 4, tree, cosmos, man. In our lives, we always have a problem. So you have a cross. This is equals to experiential. Everybody has experience of a problem. 5, cosmos, man, the cross, or cycle the cross to a flower. Number 6, you have a tree, the cosmos, man, cross, and then the star is the high and low points of life. 7, tree, the cosmos, man, the cross, star, upright heart, which is peace and order. 8, the tree, the cosmos, man, cross, star, flower, 8, or infinity. But what is most exciting is this, number 10. When we talk about the new technology, the computer, we use the binary figure again of only 2 symbols, the numerical symbol of 1 and 0. 0, 1, the cosmos is 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. Then you have the cosmos. 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. Then you have creator. We have so many gods, but there's only one creator of this cosmos. Looks like the apple, the bite, the apple, Adam and Eve, the computer. Apple, apple, cosmos, infinity. 10.
She talked to me for 4 hours. 4 hours straight. I did not say a word. I didn't even say, ooh. She just talked. She got tired when she was about 3 hours deep, and then she brought in a video. And so she played herself talking, and then I had Imelda twice. I had her on the video, and I had her talking. And when I left, she gave me a Hershey bar. But the Hershey bar was 10 pounds.
All my critics, for instance, I listen to. Maybe they're correct. But if I check, and honestly check, Am I really that ugly? Am I really that stupid? Am I really that bad? Am I really that evil? And so on and so forth. And you find out, and you're really honest to goodness, try to really do some kind of soul searching. Then you find out you are not. So, I'm okay.
One of the leading opposition figures in the Philippines was murdered today, minutes after returning from 3 years in exile. Benigno Aquino was shot by a man posing as an airport worker. Mr. Aquino had been warned his life might be in danger if he returned to Manila. He'd gone back to prepare for elections planned for next year.
He and Marcos had actually been of equal power for a long time. Because he was a threat to Marcos, precisely because he and Marcos were kind of equals, when Marcos declared martial law in 1972, he threw Ninoy in jail along with a number of other people. And then he needed a heart bypass operation in 1980, and Marcos allowed him to leave the country.
I've always tended to believe that it was done, if not at Marcos's explicit instruction, at the very least with his acquiescence and foreknowledge. They would not have done that without his having known about it.
After Ninoy died, then I asked her, Millie, did you really have Ninoy killed? Then she tells me, you also? My God, I was your student. Do you really think I can do that? I do not think you can. I don't know. You're not my student anymore. You're the first lady.
What would we have gained? Politically, financially, nothing. He was no threat to us, absolutely no threat. And why will, when he comes here on broad daylight, he will be shot dead? That's not typical of Filipino in the first place, that there's always some kind of the Filipinos have, if they will do something, they love life, they will not do something like this so flagrantly as that. And this was absolutely no reason. Well, the events has proven that we, the Marcoses, Ferdinand and Imelda, were the ultimate victims in the assassination of Aquino.
The hatred, the anger towards the Marcos regime had built up to such an extent, people overcame their fears, started going out into the streets, and in such massive numbers that Marcos couldn't do a damn thing to stop it any longer.
In order to understand why the United States government supported Marcos so long, you need to understand it was the Cold War. And the two largest bases in the world were Clark Air Base and Subic Naval Station, and they were a central part of our policy of trying to contain communist expansion. And strategic considerations trumped all other factors. But then, after Benigno Aquino's murder in 1983, everything changed.
You had a pretty vital insurgency. You had the middle class starting to consider what they should do about this. You had economic problems, and you had Marcos declining in health. So it was a really vibrant dynamic politically.
The Communist New People's Army. American officials estimate their number at 16,500 and growing. The rebels are making friends in rural areas, while the Marcos army is accused of extorting money from peasants and murdering innocent civilians. The U.S. military is concerned about the security of the base as communist rebels in the area appear to be gaining strength.
I understand the opposition has been asking for an election. In answer to their request, I announce that I am ready to call a snap election.
Marcos was goaded in an interview with a U.S. journalist as to when he would conduct snap elections, and Marcos said, "Oh, I'm ready to conduct it right away."
Corazon Aquino said she was content as the wife of opposition hero Benigno Aquino. But his assassination culminated in her unlikely candidacy only 10
I admit that I have no experience in cheating, stealing, lying.
When he leaves me, he wears a smile now. As soon as he's away from me, in your arms is where he wants to be. But you're the one he rushes home to. You're the one he...
We're confident that we can work effectively with any credibly, legitimately elected government of this country.
The energy had begun to drain from Marcos. He was gambling everything in an election that he had thought would satisfy the Reagan administration.
An estimated 400,000 people in the Manila area could not find their names in the electoral register because they had mysteriously been removed.
The fraudulence of those elections was beyond belief. It was the worst example of fraudulence that we have ever seen.
Does he love you? Does he love you like he's been loving me?
The bottom line is for the president to step down.
After the windfall defection of 2 top Marcos aides yesterday, another great moral boost for the opposition today by the people.
Yesterday, thousands of Filipinos risked their lives to protect the rebels.
The Catholic Church, too, has unleashed all its energies to support the military rebellion. Priests and nuns form the backbone of the volunteers.
He declined to use strong forces against the troops who had deserted him. And President Reagan wasn't answering his telephone.
Does he love you? Does he love you like he's been loving me?
As many as there are people who hated the couple, there were also those, people like us, maybe we didn't know really anything about the political situation. We were also charmed by the couple. When I realized that I was sort of taken for a ride, it was too late.
The people of the Philippines saw 2 would-be presidents taking the oath of office this morning. The rival ceremonies were televised live.
President Reagan this morning called for Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos to step down.
The United States extends recognition to this new government, headed by President Aquino.
It was a day of betrayal. Betrayal of governments that you held in esteem, of friends that you respected, and loved ones.
I think we felt that it would be a disaster for the Philippines and for the relationship if something would have happened to the Marcos family during those tumultuous hours as he was losing power.
The Americans. That was the downfall. We would never have been removed from the palace if not for the Americans. We were all shocked when the decision came that we would leave. We never thought my father would give that order. We weren't at all ready to leave. We were there for the duration. We weren't going anywhere.
Mrs. Aquino made it quite clear that she did not want him to remain in the Philippines at that time. So we told him that he basically had to leave the country, and he agreed.
I was to leave the palace now. And while all of these things were spread, paintings, jewelry galore, money so much because it was cash and all of that, I started giving away the money to the guards and anybody who was there, great quantities of money, because these were money to pay off the printing, the election cost and all of that. And it was underneath the bedroom of ours in Malacanang. I opened the vault. There were 40, 50 suitcases of Louis Vuitton jewelry. All of these valuables, paintings and all. What did I take? Got diapers and bottles and milk for the kids, for my grandchildren. In fact, some of the diamonds and all the jewelry that was in the dressing table, I just pushed to the diapers. And all I got finally was something with a diamond 11-carat ring that he gave me when he was, when we got married, and a 70-carat diamond ring. That's why in the costume it said, the Marcoses came in with diamonds in diapers, diapers and diamonds.
She had genuinely persuaded herself that the Filipino people basically loved her so much that they would never resent what she was doing.
The time after the revolution when the palace was open to the public, the people saw the things that I made for her. And I don't know whether to be proud of it or to be ashamed of, all of these things. Hand in hand with, the 3,000 pairs of shoes, were the ternos that I made for her. In the 16 years that I sort of served her, you can fill up a whole ship with the things that I did for her.
And 3,000 pairs of shoes.
2,600 pairs of shoes.
2,200 pairs of shoes.
1,200
The
pairs
hundreds
of
of
footwear.
shoes she had.
3,000 initially, and suddenly it became 1,000. I don't know where Courtship Aquino placed them. But now, whatever is left has been asked by the Museum of Marikina, the municipality of Marikina. Now they have an IMELDA Shoes Museum in Marikina.
Okay, here you can see some of the 200 pairs of Imelda Marcos shoes. She has to have a pair of shoes that goes with the dress, the color of the dress. This one, if you can see, it's Imelda Marcos, it by Marlet Shoes. This one is made here in Marikina. As you can see here, it's like a beadwork from Beltrami. Most of her shoes is from Beltrami, Ferragamo, Oleg Cassini, Bruno Magli. This is one of her favorite shoes. Okay, you can see it's 5 pair. It's really, really, worn out. Look, you can see the heels. That's why it's 5. It's all been really used already. That's why. This one.
As a friend of mine said, why are they making such a big deal of her shoes? I am a nobody. I am not first lady. I'm not even in government. And I own 400 pairs of shoes. I mean, people have to understand this about Filipinas. I'm ashamed to tell you how many I own.
And this is one of my favorite. It's really fancy. Look at the heels. I've tried this on when nobody was here.
The shoes also was something that really saved me all throughout, because after all, when they went to my closets, they found shoes, not skeletons. And now when you go to New York, you see posters. There's a little Imelda in all of us. Can you imagine? How wonderful. Ang pagsuyo, wagas kailanan. Ang sumpa ko, yasahan, ikaw lamang ang aking hihintay. Marcos died in a state of shock. He couldn't believe it, because he so believed in America, and he always said, America is fair, America is just, America will not fail us. To the very end, he could not believe America could do this to him. And so he did not last.
His death leaves unresolved million-dollar fraud charges in the American courts. Money he and his wife Imelda were said to have salted away in the 20 years they held power.
The Aquino government say the cash and jewels carried to Hawaii are part of an estimated $1 billion in assets which Marcos, his family and friends acquired through racketeering, fraud and extortion. Some officials say the actual amount may be closer to $10 billion. There was 1 million...
Millions and hundreds of millions of dollars were coming in contracts and aid. And you had coconut, sugar. I mean, you had major multi-billion-dollar businesses in the country. And if they're getting pieces of all that, then that's a lot of money.
First, the Crown Building.
About $101 million.
The Herald Center.
$60 million.
40 Wall Street.
About $95 million.
200 Madison Avenue.
Around $60 million, I'm not sure.
We were buying properties in New York to a place where we could anchor our economic development through free enterprise, because it's center town for free enterprise in New York. And when it is 12 o'clock in New York a.m., it is 12 o'clock p.m. in the Philippines. And the sun will never set on free enterprise. And so the grand plan was really to make the Philippines the trade center, the commercial center, the distribution center of the world.
The charges here are she and her late husband looted more than $160 million from the Philippines Treasury, invested the money in New York real estate, and defrauded American banks along the way.
And of course, the end of my anonymity was really the trial in New York, one of the trials of the century, wherein everybody, when they see me in the streets, and the Negroes or people in New York, they say, "Yo, mama!" And they immediately recognized. But it was sweet at the same time, because the people, well, really were really there for the underdog.
She cried often in the courtroom. 1 or 2 occasions she had passed out, fainted, and the trial was suspended for that day. The trial was really about Mr. Marcos and Mr. Marcos doing, not Mrs. Marcos so much. I was not convinced that she knew where the money was coming from. In my family, I do things which my wife does not know most times what I'm doing, even spending money or so forth. So I think she had a life of her own. I think she's a very humble person, very down to earth, a very nice person.
She would have been aware that money was being gotten because of the power that they had. The problem, though, would be, did she know that it was wrong? I think she thought that she was entitled to that money. There's some kind of expectation that once you're in power, you're entitled to some kind of pillage. I think she really to this day believes that that was her money, that people owed it to her because she was the first lady.
One of the points that some of the jurors were belaboring was the fact that when she came here, she had these lavish parties. But I see it as part of her job as the president's wife. We do the same thing in this country. White House has parties all the time. So we can't say because it's a poor country, they should not live up to certain standards when they come to America. I think they should.
The jury's verdict, innocent of racketeering, innocent on all counts. This was her 61st birthday, the only wish she said she wanted.
This picture was sent to me by, of course, Miss MARCOS. And on the inscription she says, to dearest Llewellyn White, July 2nd, 1991, my deepest appreciation for your lifetime birthday gift to be truth. And signed Imelda Marcus. And it's, you know, of course, I've had pictures that we have taken at the party and so forth that, with her. And I think I must have given her a picture of me, with, you know, from in the military. It's quite a picture. Yeah.
5.5 years ago, the Filipino people drove the Marcoses into exile. Today, thousands cheered as Imelda came
like
home.
royalty, like a rock star, she lit up the crowds, moving them with her piety, dazzling them with her glamour.
The U.S. government had no more reasons to keep us, and so I forced the issue to come home. In spite of all threats, I went home.
Tinatawagan ako ni First Lady, nagdadasal siya, ang lakas ang dasal ng isang ina. My loving brothers and sisters, to prepare ourselves to offer this most precious Thanksgiving gift to God, headed by the loving Mother.
Thanks God, I never lost that childlike innocence and that purity of vision and naivete. That childlike innocence was most useful, because if I was a bit wiser, I would not have been able to have done anything, perhaps. I'm so glad I was not smart.
The next target of Imelda Marcos is the government ban forbidding her burying her husband in the capital Manila with full state honors.
This is one of maybe advantages of the fact that he is still not buried, that I can see him physically like he was sleeping. There is a heavy refrigeration, I understand, and at the same time, the body is completely covered with, encased with wax, thin enough so that the contour of the body and the face is almost all there. And it is. And it can stay without actually refrigeration for a good 48 hours, but more than that, I don't think it can, it is good. But we have been lucky so far. I even told the the man who did all of this, because he had some white hair, I said, please paint it a little so that there will be no white hair, so he will be younger even in death, and looking better. In his tombstone, it says Filipino. In my tombstone, I would like to have inscribed, here lies love. But really, here lies love.
Somehow, he is more with me now than ever before.
7 candidates are standing in the election to replace Corazon Aquino. Amongst them, IMELDA Marcos,
who has no chance of winning tomorrow.
Imelda Marcos is embroiled in court battles that may last the rest of her life. The Philippines government and more than 10,000 citizens have hit her with civil, criminal, tax, and human rights claims running into the
will elect a new Congress in May. Among the hopefuls is an old, familiar face.
I'm very happy that the voice of the people of Leyte have prevailed, and
She could face sentences of up to 100 years if convicted of all charges of corruption in Manila.
Why am I a criminal?
Again, I would like to invoke my right to remain silent.
The lady of the Philippines was convicted today on 2 counts of corruption. It sentenced her to at least 18 years in prison. The judges also barred her from ever holding public office. Marcos is free on bail pending an appeal, but she still faces dozens of other charges.
I really have no fear about going to jail when you have not committed a crime. Eventually, it is you that you have to fear more, because you are terrorized by you more than anybody else. And of course, someone there up above. From being a crazy person to somebody who was super politician, super smart. A thin line nga naman ang pagkasira ulo at saka... Kleenex nga. Bigyan mo sila pagpakain. Life is creation. As we create, we give life. As we give life, we in turn are nurtured by what we nurture. We grow with whatever grows from us. It is a circle, the circle of love.
Ina ng bansang Pilipinas, Mami Imelda Romualdez Marcos.
Alam ko kahit napatay na si Marcos, alam ko siya ay maligayang maligaya sapagkat ang kanyang diwang makadiyos, makabayan, makatao ay buhay muli sa kanyang anak, si Ferdinand II, na ngayong kandidato para gobernador. At ngayon, si Amy, kandidata para congresswoman, representative in the same district of Ferdinand Marcos. You can feel yourself being born again, their father and their mother in these children. It's a very, very overwhelming feeling and very emotional feeling for me.
Yung attitude mo, yung buhay yung gano'n.
Wala, I have a very theatrical sense of dress. Kung ano lang feel ko nung panahon na yun. Hindi. Nakaganon pa rin. Nakamaong lang na shirts at saka t-shirt. Kasi sumusugod naman kami sa mga barabarangay eh. Hindi naman siguro angkop na bis ka. Nakakatawa naman tignan.
I think that we are becoming more politically mature. I have great faith na mamimili sila sa talagang pananaw nila ang pinakamagaling, pinakamarunong. Sa pangalan, sa yung anong pangalan, kilala o hindi.
Yes, ako, I'm not an apologist for political dynasties by any means. Sa akin, dapat wala nga political dynasty. Hindi ko alam ba, tumatak ko si Mama. Hindi. Hindi mo sinabi sa akin. Hindi, actually, ang katotohanan talaga,
This is about Mommy. Louder.
Hindi na nag-iisip ng politika kasi marami siyang problema ngayon lalong-lalo na yung mga kaso-kaso.
Did you consult her?
Did we consult her? Siyempre, gusto niya talagang makita na tumakbo na kami pareho
Lagi namin kinakausap ang mother ko dahil sa aking pananaw, wala pa akong nakitang kasing galing na... She's one of the best...
the master yun
She's one of the best politicians I know. Ang galing ng instincts niya, incredible.
Mag-gut feel niya, birang sumagot.
Ibang klase talaga. Kasi yun na sinabi niya,
political animal.
She's seen it all She's seen it all. So talagang yung experience niya is malawak at malalim at mahaba. Kaya pagka hindi na namin naintindihan kung ano nangyayari.
They seem to get the very spirit my late husband and I were committed and obsessed with in life. A miracle happened. From heaven, we got a gift of a landslide victory, not only for Ferdinand Marcos II to become governor of Ilocos Norte, but also Maria Imelda Romualdez Marcos to become the congresswoman. This was just a miracle. You can see the evilness of the world in general. Only evil complicates. My life has been complicated by everyone, including my family maybe, and my friends, some of my so-called friends. I find it so funny and ridiculous because I'm very simple. I don't know why they make a problem of me, really. I have no problem. I am at peace with my conscience and my Creator. I can always say, when the time comes for the Creator for me to take me, and He will say, "What have you done with your life, Imelda?" And I'll say, "Lord, this is what you've gave me, and this is the life you gave me, and this is what I have done with my life." And I'm sure the Lord will embrace me and give me a big smile and bring me to heaven and to eternity. I am sure of that.